Hey everyone, welcome back. This is episode 19 of Riding Backwards Podcast. I'm Jason Klink, your host. And today's podcast will be all about community. Now, I'd appreciate it if you'd like, comment, and share. Share this with anyone you think might get value out of watching this podcast, because I'm just trying to build a small community around all of my colleagues in public safety. This podcast is really built around all of my experiences riding backwards in a fire truck for many, many years. Most of those experiences, all of what I've learned, and a whole lot of my opinion. So this episode is about community. And I've talked about in the past how probably for a better part of a century, when towns and villages were created, a majority of the time in the center of the town, you'll find a church, in a fire station. And it really speaks volumes because these are regular gathering places. Think of a firehouse as more of a place where, emergencies happen and people rush to the station and trucks rush out. But over the decades, and especially during my time growing up in a firehouse, it was very much about community. And for us, it was our second families. Growing up in the firehouse, there was all kinds of different community events. Even in my fire station, back in the 70s and 80s and beyond, we had our annual field days in the summer. In the field days, the community would come out in droves just because of all the great food, the rides, maybe some of the games of chance. For the older adults, it was a chance to go have a beer with friends. And we'd get thousands of people each day for 3 days, and a majority of them were all from the community. But as time went on and things changed in the world and in our little area, in our part of the town, the attendance at these field days slowly dwindled. And a lot of other fire departments found that, because there's many fire departments at that time that had field days every summer. And really it was, the biggest reason was the fundraiser, but the secondary reason was that sense of community to bring everybody in and show our support for the community. Realistically, anytime that something happened in our community and there needed to be a resolution, many times the community turned to the fire department. And, times change. The ranks of the fire department, got lower and lower. The social, economical demographics of our part of the town changed from majority homeowners that really, quite frankly, took pride in their properties and really took pride in being part of the community, either in that church or in that fire department. And it changed to majority renters who kind of come and go. They may or may not set roots. They just needed a place to live, and that sense of community, from what I've seen, just isn't the same. And the reason I'm creating this podcast here today is because in light of certain events in another town. And in this other town, they decided to make some changes in the fire department coverage in their town. And, you had two different fire departments, one career, one not career, but heading in that direction, heading towards part-time staff, because they knew they had to for the large fire district that they had. But insert politics here, and now politicians are getting involved, and politicians, I think they know better. And they may have some data. I'm not really privy to what the deciding factors were with these politicians. But anytime politicians, as we've seen both locally and across the country, majority of the times when the politicians get involved, it's more about dollars and cents than common sense. And the sense of community really takes a back seat. Now, with this situation, the town felt that the part of the town that was a fire protective district being protected by majority volunteers and some part-time staff that had been protecting it for decades, there needed to be a change, and they needed to have the career fire department in the town take over this protective district. Now, this has gone on for a better part of a year or two. the volunteer fire department trying to plead their case with the town. But there seemed to be underlying circumstances, some underlying reasoning to make a change. And for some reason, the change all of a sudden started to be made quicker. And, where the predominantly volunteer department started looking at the town and looking for funds to be able to move towards that career status, career fire department status, the more the town decided that they knew how to spend the money better. And they abolished the former fire protective district. They created a highly energized, highly emotional situation. And at one point in their final meeting, deciding meeting last night, the town supervisor took it upon himself to decide that one of the reasons why they didn't award the fire protective contract to this predominantly volunteer fire department was because volunteer firehouses were not professional. And I got to tell you, if you want to pull on a nerve string of any volunteer firefighter anywhere, tell them that they're not professional. Now, granted, there are departments, volunteer departments in many states, even here in New York, that they don't act professional. It's tough to cure that. I would like to brag that in the area that I live in, the county that I live in, the majority of the volunteer firehouses and fire departments act professional. They train professional. They train the same way as those professional career departments do. On paper, they're the same kind of fire departments. So for a politician to stand up and stand up in the middle of an already highly emotional, highly charged room situation and pull on that nerve string, baited the volunteer firefighters in that room into a yelling match because he pulled on a highly sensitive nerve. And the end result was everybody looked unprofessional. A majority of firefighters in these volunteer firehouses have a sense of community, have that sense of a second family. They're there because they care. They don't go running into emergency scenes because they have nothing better to do. They don't go running into burning buildings unpaid because they don't value their lives. It's because they have that sense of community. I just saw it the other day in my own department where, it was a very difficult situation. It wasn't a huge fire. It was, minor in every sense of the word. But there were some extenuating circumstances, and our crews acted professional the entire time and acted in the best interest of the residents and in the community. So in this changing world, volunteer firehouses for the last 20 or 30 years have, had their ranks dwindled down. They're down to very small numbers in a lot of places. There's a lot of volunteer firehouses that have done very little to change something in order to encourage participation, in order to uphold that standard of service they promised to provide to the community. And it's those departments that are struggling to keep their doors open. But I have to say that, going back to the whole professional thing, that even just in my volunteer firehouse, I would have to guess that we've had probably somewhere around 24 or better firefighters that started out or grew up in that volunteer firehouse and became those career firefighters down the road. And even though they became career firefighters, they still had that sense of community and still volunteered their free time at that volunteer firehouse. So before politicians decide they want to put their hands in the cookie jar, and to them it's all about dollars and cents, and really that's the environment we live in. What's the dollars and cents? You should take a reading on the community and how that firehouse is woven into the fabric of that community and how they support that community before rushing to make highly charged, highly emotional decisions about who protects that community during the residents' worst day of their lives. So I just wanted to make that this podcast today. Really, it's a lot of my opinion, some of my experience, and everything that this podcast is built around. So I really appreciate it. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think, good, bad, or indifferent. I'd love to hear your comments on this topic or any other topic, and anything you would like to see from the podcast moving forward. So with that, everybody, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, be safe, and continue that sense of community. Have a great day.